How's it going, everybody? Jumanji here. Despite the fact that very recently I made an entire video talking about how we are genuinely in a gaming golden age, mainly due to the fact that, less mainstream studios like FromSoft and indie, publishers and whatnot are pretty much just kind of like on the rise. Surprisingly enough, well, not every single indie project you should be throwing your money at. Oddly enough, there are in fact quite a few different scams. I mean, hell, if you were a follower of Critical, you probably know that there are quite a few indie game scams that exist on Kickstarter. However, today we're talking about a very unique one. We're talking about a man who apparently not only is hosting a crowdfunding scam, but has also made a name for himself within this whole entire anti-woke/culture war sphere. A man that simply goes by the name of Grummz. But who is Grummz? Who is this man that we're talking about today? Well, let's actually strap in and talk about the man himself before we actually get into, well, what he's currently known for nowadays. Because oddly enough, he has quite the resume. So Marcus Kern, also known as Grummz, is a very interesting specimen, to put it very simply. In fact, he, surprisingly enough, unlike a lot of the other people who are part of this weird culture war sphere, he actually does in fact have a resume when it actually comes to, well, game development, oddly enough. He actually used to work for Blizzard at some point on games like World of Warcraft before he either left on his own or got fired. Honestly, the details on that are a little bit muddied and I can't really find out anything, but all I know is that some of his co-workers don't exactly have the best lasting impression of him, considering the fact that if you try to look up anything about him, you'll see posts of like people having almost like horror stories about the man from working with him in Blizzard. And that's saying something considering the fact that they, well, worked at Blizzard, so. But surprisingly enough, his current game that he has supposedly been working on for the past 6 or 8 years isn't actually his first ever project. In fact, he actually used to have another project by the name of Firefall, God knows how long ago, in which that was yet another crowdfunded project, in which for some unknown reason, despite collecting a decent amount of money for Firefall, instead of spend the money on advertising that made sense, he instead decided to spend it on a bus, which I can guarantee you a grand total of 5 people actually gave a shit about. For some unknown reason, Grummz apparently thinks that he's a master of marketing because of it, just because it's the most well-known thing that he's ever created, well, next to this recent scam of his. But the funny thing is that, once again, that isn't actually his only game. In fact, he is currently working on one right now as we speak. Or at least was supposed to be working on one for the past, 6 or 8 years. A game that went by the name of Ember, spelled like this for some reason, that mainly tries to market itself off of cheap sex appeal now, which honestly, I wouldn't have that much of a problem on its own. Honestly, despite what you may hear about me making fun of people for being gooners or anything along those lines, I'm not exactly like a prude myself or anything along those lines. It's just that, well, I understand that there's a time and place for fucking everything, and sometimes these people just fucking don't. But here's the thing about Ember, okay? You would think that a game like Ember would have, with 6 to 8 years of development being behind it, almost $500,000+, basically $500,000 in the bank when it comes to crowdfunding for this game, you would think that over the past 6 to 8 years, there would be a lot more progress being done on this game. What if I told you that everything that I just said right there was nothing but subtle foreshadowing to the fact that this game barely even exists? Don't believe me? Well, here's some leaked gameplay footage of this game. 6 to 8 years of development for something that's barely better than a technical demonstration. That is what Mark has apparently been working on, and this is all he has to show for it. And the thing is that the progress on this game was basically almost entirely unknown to everybody who was backing this game, oddly enough. Only a few people who were given, codes or whatever, were actually given access to this game to actually know just how lackluster it was, and surprisingly enough, one of them was actually just so sick and tired of just how little work was actually being done onto it, that of course ended up getting leaked. So that's how we actually know the current progress of this game as of right now, and that's how we even know. But what do you think Grummz has been doing other than working on this game? And why is it in the current state that it is right now? Well, that's where things start to get really funny. So you guys will probably recall from earlier that I mentioned that Grummz is quite possibly one of the biggest figureheads in this whole anti-woke/culture war sphere. He tends to spend a lot of his time, and by a lot of his time I do mean a lot of his time, basically bitching about wokeness on in video games and various pieces of media on Twitter, because it's pretty much the only thing that's actually netting him any relevance. That, and of course, just trying to make fun of people and failing spectacularly when the best that he could deliver on a video game is, well, what we've already seen beforehand. In fact, there's even more screenshots of, like, what apparently the pilots look like, and they're not too impressive either, let's put it that way. And in fact, if you are genuinely wondering if, like, this leaked gameplay is of course what it was as of recently, well, allow me to just quickly let you know that on the official Ember Discord server, there was quite literally a call to action, which I will just read it out for you guys right here, okay? Gatestriders, Grummz needs your support. The woke mob is spreading lies about Ember, calling it a scam, abandoned, buggy weekend Unreal Engine tutorial project, etc. It's time to prove them wrong. Grummz has put out a call for support in his Discord. Hello out everyone, people are asking how they can help. They can do so by having a recording session on Friday's CC, where I capture footage of our multiplayer. I'll use this and our recent updates to put together a new video on Ember. I'll send an email out as well. And of course, within the comments alone, you can pretty much just take a look that nobody was buying this in the first place. We have comments such as, at this point it is an abandoned scam, we were waiting, 8 years, and there is nothing to show, and the man himself is a grifter and a scammer. And of course, other comments such as, I'll stop calling it a scam if I can get my money back. But the thing is that, well, this entire recording session ultimately led to even more of a reveal that this entire game was nothing more than a fucking scam. When that recording session ended up happening and people ended up revealing the current state of the game, well, it was just more and more confirmation that the game itself was just a barely even, it was barely even, outside of it's not even an alpha state at this point. There's no sound effects for even the gun, and the footsteps seem to just kind of cut off at random. This is the kind of game that apparently has 8 years and over $500,000 backing it. And no one knows what the $500,000 is actually being used for. In fact, the fact that nobody knows what the $500,000 is currently being used for has pretty much led to people trying to create petitions to basically get Grummz to actually show off the financial reports of this fucking game, because nobody goddamn knows what the money is being used for. $500,000. I have to keep on hammering that home. $500,000 has went into a game that, as of right now, or at least as of a couple months ago, is barely even outside of a tech demo. And considering that it was only as of last month that I started to see weird posts of some sort of 3D model artist called Cute Sexy Robots. I cannot believe that those are words that just left my mouth, ladies and gentlemen. Talking about how they were going to start working with Grummz on actually working on some of the 3D models for this game. Pretty safe to say that the game hasn't really left that current state that it is in right now over the past 2 months. Not that I would have expected too much to be happening in 2 months, but again, considering how little has been done in the past 8 years on this game, I don't anticipate him to suddenly shape up and suddenly create the game that everybody has been waiting for in the past, in 2 months that he was supposed to be working on for about 8 years or so. In fact, it ended up getting so bad that one of his biggest meat writers, Melanie Mack, apparently tried to do some weird apologetics for why the game isn't even fucking finished, trying to claim stuff like MMOs always take a long time to make. Companies such as Riot Games even had to cancel theirs. Delays are part of the business. Grummz has made games before. Obviously, he isn't just suddenly scamming now. Well, I hate to break it to you, but I don't think people are expecting the game to be finished, if that's what you're trying to, imply here. People just want there to be more than, well, this. I don't think it's anything to do with delays. In fact, if there were any delays on this game, I'm pretty sure it would be more widespread knowledge at this point, considering that from all I've looked up whenever it comes to Ember, I haven't heard any big announcements of, oh, the game is being delayed for X, Y, and Z year or anything along those lines. It just seems like for the past 8 years, Grummz has been doing somewhere between jack and shit on this game with the over $500,000 that he's been given in the 8 years of fucking time that he has supposedly had to work on it. You know, maybe Grummz, instead of using AI slop images as promotional art for this game, maybe instead of consuming AI slop about, like, wokeness in video games, or using AI slop as, like, fucking, like, you know, promotional shit for your game, or using 3-year-old promotional trailers for your game, or maybe even older than 3 years old at this point, considering the fact that the only other source of the video that he once used to try and dispel the claims of AI or anything along those lines was an over 3-year-old promotional video. Maybe instead of doing any of that, maybe instead of bitching on Twitter, maybe instead you could actually, you know, fucking work on your game for once. Not like it's really gonna help anymore at this point, considering the fact that the outcry for just how little work has been done on this game was so unbelievably bad that it actually caused Grummz to remember that he even had a Discord server in the first place, and started purging everybody who was basically talking shit about the game, who was basically asking for a refund or stating that the game was unfinished or anything along those lines, and the only people that probably remain in that Discord server are either A, people who are too scared to speak out themselves, or B, an echo chamber. But of course, on the topic of refunds, there's another fellow YouTuber that goes by the name of Sid Alpha, who apparently actually purchased a package for this game. Now keep in mind, even if you've purchased a package for this game, which I feel like I might as well mention right now, I forgot to mention this earlier, but this game apparently has like some sort of weird like system similar to that of like Star Citizen for whatever reason, where you have to like purchase a package in order for you to actually have, you know, a chance to get access at the game, which funnily enough, barely anyone has actually gained access to the game other than, again, a few select people. And oddly enough, Sid Alpha decided to purchase a package to hopefully see behind the curtains and see how much progress has actually been done on the game itself. To which, well, he never really was given access, and at some point he actually tried to ask for a refund. To which it took Mark over 5 months, apparently. Obviously, the following DMs here are mainly talking about how apparently Mark is now playing victim right now and using his, like, children's health as, like, a defense for why he hasn't been working on the game at all, despite the fact that, well, we could talk about the fact that he's a deadbeat father who couldn't even pay child support for whatever reason. Yeah, apparently that 500k can go to a lot of things, like a fucking VTuber rig, but apparently can't even seem to go to taking care of his own family that he doesn't even have anymore. That's not even the only instance of Grummz apparently using his, like, family as, like, a way to, like, deflect really anything. Apparently, the current listed owner, the current CEO for, you know, the, Ember studio, isn't even Mark himself, or at least it isn't labeled as Mark being the owner. It's instead his mother, supposedly, that is listed as the CEO for this Crixa Labs LLC, meaning that for some unknown reason, he has his mother listed as the owner of Ember for whatever reason, despite the fact that it's very obvious that he's the one that's actually running the show, and he probably has his mother listed so that way any kind of, like, financial trouble ends up going to her instead of him for whatever reason. I mean, that's just a guess, but who the hell knows? But hey, I guess it's perfectly fine for him to bring up the fact that other people use, like, the passing of a family member as a way to justify why they start to, you know, create a game or anything along those lines. Well, at the exact same time, he's perfectly willing to use his own children as a shield to deflect any criticism from a fellow YouTuber. I think that just perfectly describes this level of irony. And of course, well, I could talk about the fact that he is possibly a lolicon due to the fact that, well, he retweeted some art that for some reason he was tagged in. That's fucking disgusting, if I'm going to be completely honest. I feel like at that point we would start to get way too off the rails, and it would just end up becoming more and more of a mess than it already is. So, of course, despite the fact that this man apparently is claiming to have been working on a game for the past God knows how long at this point, I tried to scroll back as far as I could on this man's Twitter account, for really anything. Maybe even to try and find, like, when he started to really hammer in this weird culture war grift, if you will. But the thing is that I genuinely couldn't find it. I scrolled back, like, months at this point. Because this man tweets than somebody who doesn't have a $500 scam that they should be working on. Like, it's just unbelievably fucking insane as to just how often he ends up tweeting, and I still have yet to even reach the bottom. For all I know, he's been doing this shit probably since the entire grift ended up becoming a popular grift to, you know, bank off of, which I guess is around like mid-2023. For all I know, he's been doing it sooner. For all I know, he only started doing it this year. Regardless, it's still not much of an excuse as to why he has been working on this fucking game. Again, this has over $500,000 slammed into it from crowdfunding. People are now demanding refunds en masse, and even probably as I'm recording this, there's probably more and more shady shit being dug up about this man that it's kind of one of the main reasons why it took me as long as it did for me to even get this video out. Originally, I thought that this rabbit hole was only going to be like a 20-minute adventure. In and out, I grab a few things, kind of talk about them, kind of bring up my own opinion, and then I'll be done with it. But no, it ended up turning into about 3 days of on and off, looking into so many different things that came out over the past week alone on just how bad Grummz and by extension this Ember project really is. This game is never going to be finished in my personal opinion, and if it is, it's not going to be for any kind of good reason, and I don't expect it to be anywhere near as polished as you guys will probably think it is, especially given the fact that, again, he's supposed to have been working on this for, again, almost a decade. And for pretty much most of that time, he's been doing absolutely nothing other than fucking around in Unreal Engine and twiddling his dick in his hands. I'm not entirely even sure at this point. But overall, that's kind of where this entire story ends. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like. That's very well appreciated. Leave a comment down below what you thought about the video, what you want me to talk about next. And also subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more content such as this. Also, go ahead and follow me on Twitter, join the Discord server. I also have a Blue Sky if you want to follow me there. And special thanks to my amazing channel members, Grummz and MadFox94. There's not really much else I can say other than they're absolutely fantastic. If you guys made it to this point in the video, I don't know, comment Astral Infection. There we go. That's the meme for today. But yeah, anyways, guys, this has been Sandy, and have yourselves a nice day.